Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Coach Krisler's Convos. If you are new here, this is a place where we just come together with colleagues, friends, people that we know or don't know, and talk about their health journeys and how they've used functional medicine along the way. So today I am joined by Rosanne. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you are here because I'm excited to share your story with the rest of the world. So before we get to that, tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Rosanne Bloom, and I live in Clarksville, Maryland. It's about 35 minutes outside of Washington, D.C., and born and raised in Maryland, been here my whole life with the exception of a 3-year residency at the University of Florida. I am a mom to 2 boys, 22 and 25. I live with my husband and my dog, Duke, and I am an orthodontist by training, practiced orthodontics for 27 years before I switched careers to become a functional medicine health coach.
Awesome. Well, I didn't know that you went to Florida. My sister graduated from Florida, so I'm a Gator fan. So yay, go Gators.
Go
Um,
Gators.
yeah, how awesome that you spent much of your career in orthodontics, and yet you have now transitioned into coaching and using functional medicine principles in that coaching. So I'm curious to know what drew you to health coaching.
Yeah, so I have been kind of self-studying functional medicine for about 11 years. And that journey started when my now 25-year-old son was 14. And he was diagnosed with yet another health challenge. He's had many, many, many health challenges since birth. And when he was diagnosed with severe Crohn's disease when he was 14, we kind of just added it onto the list. And I started to think there has to be something greater causing all of his health challenges. Yeah, so from birth, he was a very sick child. He was born with eczema, which is an inflammatory skin condition. He was very sick as a child. He ended up in the pediatric intensive care unit at Johns Hopkins when he was 8 months old,
Wow.
struggling to breathe. And um, even before that, he had, severe gastrointestinal issues and colic and didn't sleep and he was just covered in eczema. He was kind of like a bloody baby. He was always scratching and itching and bleeding. And I don't have
And
one.
this was your first child?
This is my first child.
Oh my goodness.
I had just opened my orthodontic practice from scratch. I was a busy working mom, and it was a big challenge. And, you know, luckily, when they discharged him from Hopkins after testing for cystic fibrosis and many other things that can contribute to pulmonary issues, we were sent to see a pediatric allergist, and he was diagnosed with asthma and multiple severe life-threatening food allergies. I mean, he was allergic to almost every food there was. When I stopped nursing, he was on baby formula till he was 4. It was very challenging.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
caring. Yes, yes. So it was a challenge. And back in the
Mhm.
90s, food allergies weren't really known. So I had to pave the way, as a mom through, preschool and elementary school and middle school, pave the way and educate. And yes, it was a challenge, but I learned so much from it.
Wow. I can only imagine what it was like to be a first-time mom, to be in medicine yourself, opening your business and, working and trying to have, deal with the issues of your child. And, I'm sure you felt, I'm guessing that you felt kind of in this tug of war of making sure that your business was growing and thriving, but also that your child was taken care of because, he's a priority.
Yes, for sure. Luckily, I have had a wonderful, wonderful business partner who we met our first day of dental school in the 80s. And she was very, understanding of, my son's medical issues and
Hmm.
my need to maybe leave emergently or, be gone a little bit. I also had an hour each way commute to work. So that was challenging. Um, yeah, it really built my resilience and my perseverance because I feel like I'm a fixer and I wanted to, keep him safe. My goal was
Hmm.
let's keep him safe, let's keep him alive because almost every day he was, breaking out in hives or having a reaction. And so it was definitely a challenge to balance motherhood, being a business owner, and being the mom of a child, with a life threatening, condition. I mean, food is ubiquitous, it's everywhere, it's in our lives, and it was challenging. We were told he could never eat in a restaurant. We could not fly on a plane till he was in middle school. Some of his allergies were airborne. He, you know, always had to carry epinephrine, birthday parties. He's an avid athlete playing sports. We always had to be present. We always had to be on field trips. I was always the room mom because I wanted to keep the environment, safe for him.
Hmm. Hmm. Wow. And so, thinking about that, having that business partner that was so supportive, it makes me think about how important our community is. When we are going through difficulty, certainly we need community. And when we are celebrating, we need community as well. And so, how cool was it for you to have that person that knew you well because you had been in school together for so long, and that you were able to, have that support in your business. So, I would love to hear a little bit about how you felt you dealt with the stress of that, because we know that stress can certainly contribute to a lot of different, or it can have a negative impact on us in terms of how we deal with that if we're mitigating it in a healthy way or maybe not so much.
Yeah, thanks for asking. That's such an important question because, looking back, I have so much insight into kind of the stress that I know I was under, but didn't really understand. And
Mm.
with my functional medicine certification, I also became a certified breathwork coach and a
Mm.
certified coach for stress, anxiety, and self regulation. So now I can take a deeper dive into my past and what I went through, raising my boys. I just was on, autopilot, working, raising him, just trying to keep him safe. I didn't really truly understand the stress I was under. I didn't understand that. Now I do, that I've kind of lived in fight or flight for the last 25 years. My nervous system, my baseline is up here, and I've been working so hard the last year and a half to bring it down. And it's a process and it's
Mhm.
not linear, it's a journey. And so looking back, I was under a tremendous amount of stress. And now I can, understand that and try and heal from that. And it
Mhm.
does. We always say in our community, it takes a village. And thank goodness I had a great village and a great community of friends that, would listen and that would try and understand because no one can really walk in your shoes.
Right.
No one can live your life, but you try and educate. And that was my goal, was educating, because I was met with a lot of resistance, at the schools and trying to keep him safe. And people just didn't understand.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
always feel like we have to meet people with kindness, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, are there things when you look back and you look at that level of stress that you were dealing with, are there things that you notice now that you go, yeah, I think that was manifested from my stress? Where there may be physical symptoms or, emotional or mental health things that maybe you think, oh yeah, that seems to that could have been manifested from my stress?
Sure. I mean, I think so. I think, in addition to my son's autoimmune journey, I had my own autoimmune journey, which
Hmm.
maybe was exacerbated by that stress of raising him. But just kind of realizing that now, because my priority, is keeping him safe and, um, you know, like a normal cold or virus for someone else was a hospitalization, for him,
Hmm.
multiple hospitalizations, multiple health challenges. And, I think all in all, we did a pretty good job this summer before high school. So he was 14. He was diagnosed with a histoplasma pneumonia, a fungal pneumonia, and spent 2 weeks at Johns Hopkins again fighting for his life.
Hmm.
And so these illnesses, have been ongoing. And after he recovered from that fungal pneumonia, it took months and months. He was suffering again, and then he was diagnosed with severe Crohn's disease. And
Hmm.
this was 11 years ago. And that's where I really said, okay, there's something greater going on here. So let me figure this out. I have the science background, I have the knowledge. Let me start doing research. And back then, I didn't really know functional medicine, but I took him to multiple hospitals, three different ones, in the country, and got multiple opinions from top pediatric, gastroenterology clinics, and everyone came up with the same diagnosis, severe Crohn's disease, and everyone wanted to put him on pretty severe medication. And I said, there has to be a greater way. And I just started my research and started my research and started to build my team around me. And I found a functional nutritionist, and I found an integrative doctor, and I found an acupuncturist. And one day, one of my friends handed me a book. She said, here, maybe you could read this to help your son. It was called Breaking the Vicious Cycle by Elaine Gottschall. And it detailed how to put yourself in remission from Crohn's disease
Hmm.
with diet, something called the specific carbohydrate diet. I don't know if you've heard of it, SCD. And I read it and I reread it, and I had my son read it, and we read it together. He's only 14. He already can hardly eat any foods. I'm already cooking everything from scratch. And we decided to try it. We're going to try this. We're going to try the specific carbohydrate diet. We're going to try and put him in remission with diet. And I can tell you, it was probably one of the hardest things that I've ever done in my life. And we did it. We did it. I don't really want to say this as a healthcare practitioner, but I kind of walked away from conventional medicine
Hmm.
advice at that time, but I also had the wherewithal to know and follow him very closely to know, is he deteriorating? And then, of course, we would have reached for the meds. But 11 years later, we have avoided medication, and it opened my eyes to functional medicine. I'm so grateful.
Hmm. Hmm. Wow. So again, I'm hearing the community aspect, the team aspect, the, working together, the collaboration is so important. And it's interesting because I was having a conversation with another guest who's going to be appearing on the show soon, and she was saying the same thing about, this team effort. It isn't just about one direction, one person, one path, one diagnosis, and that's it. There's multiple ways to address an issue. And I think that's the beautiful thing about functional medicine is that it looks at all the different pathways, it looks at all the different modifiable behaviors and all these different things and really comes up with an all encompassing plan to improve a person's health.
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, health is so multifactorial, and I learned so much about health and wellness through that journey, about lifestyle medicine, about, stress and food and environment and community and, family, and how it is a team approach. It is a team effort. And there's so many things that come into play on our health and wellness journey. And I think, it taught my son a lot too. Like he knows now, he believes, he knows what to do to, keep himself healthy. Cause as a 14-year-old, he kind of learned I didn't force this. He's very bright. He's actually in medical school now. So like, I feel like full circle for him.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's really come full circle. I don't know if he'll practice functional medicine. He has to get through conventional medical school and we'll see. But he really learned so many valuable lessons at such a young age and was a willing participant in this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is key. I don't know about when you have clients come to you that you are coaching, but when clients come to me, I am very upfront with them to say, this is not about me, this is about you. You have to be willing to change the behaviors, make the decisions, commit, receive accountability, ask for resources. Like that, you have to be, like you said, a willing participant. That is so important to the person's healing. Because if it's being forced, then they don't necessarily want to, they may not necessarily grasp all of those changes and really apply it to themselves for the long term.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, people have to be intrinsically motivated for that behavior change to stick and for them to follow through. And, sometimes that's a process in and of itself, and it's a journey and it takes time. And, people need to understand, like, well, why do I want to be healthy? And why do I value my health? And, how do I want to feel? And kind of what will get me to that place?
Mhm.
So sometimes it definitely takes a little bit longer, for some than others.
Mhm. Yeah. So you mentioned that you have taken on some additional training and some additional knowledge for yourself. We've talked a lot about your son and his struggles, but at what point do you think you really started to go, okay, I don't need to just do this for him, but there are some things that I want to change, or you recognize, okay, I've got to do this for me too.
Yeah, I think early on my focus was him, but I think early on with all of my kind of learning about lifestyle medicine and functional medicine, I started to, and I've always led a healthy lifestyle. I've always exercised and, ate pretty well. I didn't manage my stress well, I know that, but I started to implement, some things for myself. I really, really learned that food is medicine and food is information for our bodies. I learned that so much with the specific carbohydrate diet. So I did start to apply that to myself as far as with diet and nutrition. It wasn't until I stopped practicing orthodontics due to some of my own autoimmune issues that I really realized what impact stress has on us mentally, physically, and spiritually. I
Mhm.
didn't really understand that. I didn't understand that was living in my sympathetic nervous system for probably my whole life. And I started to learn about the nervous system. It's my niche. I love teaching nervous system regulation, breath work. Um, so I really started to work on my stress with what works for me. And, you know, breath work's a form of meditation, and it's a great form of meditation because it's the only kind of body process that, you know, we control from our subconscious and our conscious. So breath work is very powerful. I feel like it's our biggest superpower, our biggest health hack to tune into our nervous systems and into our stress. So I would say the last 18 months since I left my practice and left the practice of orthodontics, I've been really focusing on me and my stress levels and
Mhm.
who I am as a person and how I show up for myself and other people.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have read recently a couple of books that have been really interesting in terms of understanding breath work, and all of the different ways that stress and trauma can have an effect on us. So one of the books is breath,
Mhm,
and the other one is The Body Keeps the Score.
mhm.
And it's quite fascinating how our bodies work and how they respond to stress and what we can do to really mitigate that. There are so many things out there available to us, and some of them are very simple. They don't cost a lot of money. They don't necessarily take a lot of time, but you have to know about them. You have to utilize them, right? You have to find what works for you. And once you do, it can be an incredible, just transforming tool that you use when you're just in everyday life. You don't even have to be dealing with some sort of stressor, right? It's something that you can apply. So, what are some of the tools that you found that really work for you?
Yeah, so getting back to what you were saying, like our breath work is free. It's free and it's accessible any time of the day or night. And so what works for me, because I'm not a great meditator in your traditional sense of the word meditating, but I practice breath work, a couple times a day for about 5 minutes each time. And like, I want people to realize like it's a journey and it's a process too. Because if, our brains, if our nervous system's used to being up here and we get it back down here with some breath work or some mind body medicine, we're not comfortable there. It's very uncomfortable. And our brain wants to bring us back up here. So it's a process to slowly retrain your nervous system. So, I teach a lot of breath work that reduces the stress response, that gets us deep into our parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest and restore. So my breath work is, you know, in and out through the nose, and it's a lot of nasal breathing, and there's a big reason why we should only breathe in and out through our nose, but a lot of slow, deep diaphragmatic breathing. And so I practice that myself. I teach that. I think I know it is physiologically the quickest way to balance our stress response and to balance our nervous system. We actually change our physiology. We change our biochemistry with breath work. We can reduce our stress hormones and get us into our feel good hormones. So I practice breath work multiple times a day, and I teach breath work that you can do driving in your car, in line at the grocery store, just to balance you. And then there's more deep restorative breath work to, if you wake in the middle of the night, to help you go to sleep, or if you're having an anxiety attack, how we breathe is how we feel, and how we feel is how we breathe. And, if we're breathing really high and fast, we're sending signals to our brain that we are not safe. And that is not a fun place to be. So
Hmm.
I teach safety. How do we delve into breath work so that we feel safe?
Yeah, that's so cool. So cool. And as you're talking, I can see it in your body language, how much you love to talk about this, how much you love to educate people on this, and even just how much it helps you. Your face kind of lights up, and you get a little softer when you talk about it. So it's visible on you that it really does serve you well.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you for noticing that. I do light up. It's changed my life and who I am, and it resonates so much with me. And if I can help it resonate with someone else, it may not. Then, I'm here and I'm willing, to guide people through it, but it's very powerful for me. And I am reading right now The Body Keeps the Score, and I did read Breath, and I also read an amazing book called Our Polyvagal World, which is so profound and has impacted me so much. Yeah, so I continue to take different breath certification. I just was certified through the Oxygen Advantage with Patrick McGowan. So I always want to learn and keep up to date and kind of keep that education coming when it deals with nervous system.
Mhm. Yeah, I find that many people who are in the same space as us in terms of health and wellness and coaching and functional medicine, that when you find something that really resonates with you, you just can't consume enough information about it. You know, it's like you read a book and then you want to read another book and then you take a class and then you listen to a podcast and then you have a conversation with somebody about it and then you read more books, and it's just really a cool place to just be curious and learn and then share what you're learning.
Yes, yes. And I think I kind of see it in you too, but love of learning is one of my, top character strengths. And I'm grateful for that. And
Mm-hmm.
we love to learn. And I feel like we always have to be learning and growing and open, and creating a growth mindset within ourselves, and not be stagnant. And it's so important to, continue to grow and learn throughout life. There's always a, lesson that, we can take with us into our future and learn from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So thinking about that new mom who started her business and had a new baby who is, you know, dealing with all these various struggles and diagnoses, what would you say to her now if she was a client coming to you and she sat down across from you and said, "Oh my gosh, I am so stressed. I have this child that I love, but man, it's a challenge, and starting this new business, and I just need help, coach, help me." What would you where would you start?
Oh my goodness. That's a great question. That's also a tough question. I actually was talking to my son about this the other day about like how I raised him. And, I hovered, I was scared for
Mm,
his life. I was so overprotective. I could have raised a boy in a bubble. I could have raised an anxious child that didn't want to like veer out there, go out into the world. And when I tell you it turned out the exact opposite, it wasn't because of me, and we chatted just the other day via text that, we both learned so much from, how my husband and I raised him and, how I was a hovering mom and, that it was out of fear. So I admitted that to him.
mhm,
And I can look back now and say it was all from fear. And so what would I say to a mom in that same situation? I think I would help her align herself so that, you know, when we don't feel safe, we feel fear.
mhm,
And knowing what I know now, I would help her to understand her circumstances and help her feel safe, in her mind, in her body, in her environment, with teaching nervous system regulation. And I think that we make a lot of decisions kind of based on fear and anxiety. And I realized that is kind of what I did. And I would teach her kind of to be here now and be
mm,
present now. And, let's like, we don't have proof that that's going to happen or the future that's going to happen in the future. Let's be here now. Let's address, the challenges that we have now and focus on creating a safe environment, kind of free of fear.
mhm. Yeah. And that's the challenge, right? Because as a parent, you do want to protect your child. You don't want them to be hurt or, certainly end up in serious situations where they're fighting for their life. And yet you also want to give them space and let them be curious and creative and try new things. And so that balance can be very difficult. And certainly, if you're dealing with your own personal challenges as well, that can then exacerbate the issue. And so I love that you are thinking to help the mom in herself feel safe. I think as parents, a lot of times we focus so much on our children that we don't necessarily prioritize our own physical, mental, and social well-being. And so then, we're still struggling while we're, making sure our children are okay. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think self-care, looking back, self-care is so important. And we are focused on our kids. We're in charge. We're responsible. We bear this huge weight of keeping our kids safe that a lot of busy working moms tend to neglect themselves, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And that, like you just said, with the body keeps the score, the body keeps the score. And a lot of people don't know that.
Hmm.
It would be so nice to be able to educate, people on that and help them really practice self-care. It's like put your oxygen mask on first. And, I did not do that at all.
Hmm.
And, but I try not to look back. I always say to my boys, let's not look back. We're not going that way. We'll
Hmm.
take that, we'll learn from that lesson, and then we'll move forward and we'll utilize those tools. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Learning from that experience and moving forward is very important. Yeah, that's key. So, how are you feeling now? You said you've been kind of working on yourself for the past year and a half. And so, what types of things have you noticed improvement in for yourself?
Yeah, so I've noticed an improvement in my sleep,
Mm,
uh, as far as kind of reducing my stress levels. I've noticed an improvement like in my reactivity,
mm,
to not be as reactive and on edge, and jumping to conclusions. More, I'm more kind of proactive or just kind of passive. Um, I'm much more calm. I show up as a different person to family and friends and colleagues, just from learning to manage my own nervous system. I definitely feel like healthier in the mind and the body, from studying functional medicine and studying nervous system regulation. I am fortunate that, I get to practice functional medicine as a health coach. I mean, I loved orthodontics. I thought it was the best profession ever, but like in a lifetime to get like a second, shot at another profession that you love as much, I just feel really grateful.
hmm. Yeah. So, not knowing you in those days and having this experience and conversation with you now, I would have never imagined that you were anxious or on edge or reactive, as you said, because the way that you present yourself today is much more calming. You have a very calming voice and a very sweet spirit about you. And so clearly, the work that you have done, you have learned from, and you are using those tools, and it is showing up for you. And so I think that's really important for people to recognize is that you don't have to stay in the same space. You don't have to sit, those behaviors can change. There are tools out there available for you. There are coaches, right? There are medical professionals. There are functional medicine doctors. There's the village. available to help you make those changes. And it may take some time, but be patient, stay the course, be consistent, and you'll get there. And you will show up as a different person, as you said, to the people in your community.
Yeah, and I also feel like it's never too late and you're never too old. And if we are kind of open to possibility, like I was in the health field, but I didn't really understand the nervous system and stress and the impact it can have on our body. And just kind of being, we don't know what we don't know, like until we
Mm-hmm.
know it. So I feel so grateful to be able to share, my knowledge and guide anyone, that wants to be on that journey to health and wellness. So yeah, I just feel like we need to be open to possibilities and have a growth mindset and, want to learn. And yeah, there's always time.
Mm-hmm.
And it is
Yeah,
a process. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Well, Rosanne, this has been such a delightful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing about your son and about yourself. I'm sure there are people listening who maybe have questions or want to know more about you. So, where can they find you?
Yeah. So I have a website and it is in full bloom like my last name, health.com. So in
Okay,
full bloom health.com. Yeah. And my email's on there and my phone number is on my website. So yeah, people can find me through my website.
awesome. Well, I will make sure that that gets into the show description. And for those of you out there who enjoyed the conversation today, make sure you give us a like and comment what you took away from it. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of the convos. And until next time, I'll see ya. Bye.